This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from Lilypub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelkastens. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelkastens have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Book. Let's do it again.
All right.
Episode 25. WIPs, Notebox Bunnies, and Perfection.
Well, welcome to this episode of the Zettelcast. I'm Victoria, your host for this episode. Everyone is ready to rock and roll with their plus ones, their note boxes, their Zettelkastens. For today's focus, I asked 3 questions, given time for the third one, but the primary question that I posed to the group is this. Do you have a topic or a string of cards that you consider a work in progress? Something specific that you're building as you read or research that might need elaborating on the cards later, or are your note cards generally one and done? The idea is captured, processed, and the cards are never elaborated on or expanded later. So do you add on to note cards later and share your process of why or why not? Anyone?
Well,
Yeah.
I'll start. So I think that pretty much every topic that I have is a work in progress, to a greater or lesser extent. Doesn't mean that I'm actively working on everything at once, but there's always the possibility of adding on to something, because I'm not researching factual things. I'm researching ideas, and ideas grow. That's what they do, and they connect. Specifically, I am actively working on medieval theology to some extent, but philosophy more so, and classical philosophy because that's the basis for it, and specifically Ramon Lull. So all of those topics are active and being added to as I learn. I don't usually write on a card that I've already done. Sometimes I will. If I come across a card and there's space on it and there's more I want to add to it, I'll just go ahead and write on that card. But I use 3x5 cards, so usually there isn't space. So I just add another card after it if I feel that something needs to be explicated, added to it. So yeah, I mean, basically my entire Zettelkasten is, yes, open-ended, could be added to.
Cool.
And mostly I just add cards if I need to add onto my ideas, and which I do fairly frequently. So yeah.
Awesome.
Well,
Deb, did you want to say something?
only that this thread that I'm following, it certainly, I mean, it even gave me, both of them even gave me a 12-week program, to get into the study. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. Suppose I did this. Suppose I actually, decided to meld these 2 12-week programs together. And I read all these Joan Didion books, and I do the copying like they talk about when you want to get into somebody's style, you copy their work. Chat GPT said type it in, but I know better than that, so that's not the way to do it. But the idea is, what would happen if I actually follow these 12-week programs or this merge one, and at the end of 12 weeks, what would I have? That's the question. And I think it's intriguing enough for me to try to figure out how to do it. So
Yeah,
that's where I'm at.
I
Kathleen?
started out making cards and adding to them,
Mm-hmm.
and I now find that those cards that I added to, or the cards that were just like a big hairball of thoughts, they're not, it's almost like I take all of those thoughts for granted.
Oh.
Because I think that the thoughts that have been separated out into their own cards with their own taglines get more traffic
Mm.
and more connections. Whereas, there's this one card that was just like, and every time I see it in the index, it's like, oh, that one. That one whose reach is exceeding its grasp.
Yeah.
And if I come back to software, what I would encourage a developer to do is refactor that code so it's really, really clean. Refactor is a term of art in software that really just means make sure that one part of your code is just doing one thing and it's not trying to do everything for everybody. And this card is trying to do everything for me. And it's not succeeding. So I'm very glad that I think for the last 8 months, I've gone the other direction, and it's thanks to Kathleen and her directory cards and all that, where it's like, it's actually a better way to link things together than having the links on the card itself. Look, you're not going to go visit that. It's like, where are all the links? But the directory cards are really helping there.
Cool.
Well, for me, it's a whole section. This whole front section of my is my work box. And in particular, the bulk of it is the book I'm writing on the Zettelkasten. And when I started doing a Zettelkasten wasn't something I caught information on into my Zettelkasten. I was doing Zettelkasten, but things popped in as they do, and things were sufficiently interesting that they got into my Zettelkasten. In particular, that very seed card that Scott Shepper has in chapter 11, where it's the first main card you add to your Zettelkasten. I think everybody has that one in their Zettelkasten, and it's really about a Zettelkasten. But so consequently, where my Zettelkasten information grew up was all over the place, just by remote connections, oh yeah, this kind of fits here, this kind of fits there. So then when I did decide to write a book on the Zettelkasten, I had to go hither and yon to pull all of these cards, this whole, front section of cards of all the stuff I had on Zettelkasten. Well, I got the idea that what I really wanted to do was make a planned section on the Zettelkasten. So I gave it its brand new number 6. And then I set out some foundation cards to define where I wanted to go with that. And my plan was to do all new material into that 6 area and then link to the stuff wherever it was. But because I was writing a book, I had to pull all that stuff. Well, it turned out to be, it totally stalled my creation of my area 6. I can't add anything to the Zettelkasten now in the form of a numbered card. I add things to it, but they just drop in the form of cards that don't have any numbers. And I've got these little divisions that tell me, what that section, it's like a dump box of the topic. This one's the bib box. And so anything that's remotely on the bib box goes in there. But I can't really add anything because my cards aren't in any proper order anymore because they've been sorted into their topic. So that turned out to be a big jumble. When the book is written, I still hope to go through it and do that and actually put all those links and finish my foundation cards, but not happening right now.
So that raises a good question. When the book is finished, because this is exactly what prompted this question. When the book is finished, will all of those cards then go back to live where you pulled them from, or will they live going forward in where they go in the book?
They will live physically where they came from, but I'm hoping that the directory cards will be in place that will link to them so that I'll have one place where I can go to see all the stuff that was important to me about the Zettelkasten in an organized fashion. so that if I have an area that I want to explore further, I'll know where I'll have, first of all, I've got the taglines. So that's the amazing thing is that so often you don't have to go pull the card because the tagline does the job of bringing the whole card back to memory. So simply having the directory cards with the tagline is often all you need. Although the physical cards will go back, but not until they've linked to where they need to go.
Very cool. Very cool. That actually solves the kind of problem that I was grappling with, which is the same thing. Everything that I've pulled to write the Zettelkasten for Fiction Writer's book, which is obviously nonfiction, is sitting over there just like yours. It's sitting in the box that that book lives in while I'm finishing the writing. And then I started to think, because of the way the novel is written, the novel cards largely live where they live in the plot box, and that's not going to change because that then becomes the book Bible. So I found myself thinking about, as I was looking through cards, I found myself thinking about times when during writing the novel, I would pull cards for something and I would find myself adding things. You know, like Mel said, if you've got extra room, I would find myself, you know, in the context of where I was at this point in the story, as opposed to when I started the card, I would go in and add. And I started to think, you know, like Julianne said, do I want to do that? Would I rather add a card behind it? Or I think maybe Mel said it, you know, just continue to build off of that first card rather than adding to it. Because I can't, unless I date it or something separately or write it in a different color, whatever, you know, there becomes a thought train there. So yeah, it became kind of a struggle to try and decide, should I add on to cards or should I just add cards? And then where's all this stuff going to live when I'm done with it? I'm inclined to say that it will stay going forward. I think in my mind, I will always think of this set of topics as part of my book. So when I go to find them, that's where I'm going to look first. So I think I'm inclined to do the same thing I did with the novel and leave those cards in the book structure, because I think trying to go back and find them the other way, that's not what I'll think of first, you know, unless I go to the index and see the numbers. But yeah, it's dicey when you work on a big project. What does that transition look like and how's it going to play out?
Well, mine all have card numbers where they go, so that's where they will go back. But as I found, I've been adding new cards as insights develop when I'm working on it, and they have no card numbers on them. They just are living in a certain section. So they will get in my 6 section. They will all get numbers that go with where they belong in the new numbering system. But as for adding cards, the only time I add to a card is if I get one of my very old cards that never had a reflection. I might add my reflection if there's room. And I will definitely add a tagline if a card does not have a tagline. And because I have all those old sections where there's a directory card, and the old style directory card is a divider, and it's got a title. And the title has been indexed, and none of the old cards in that section were ever indexed. Because, well, you had the title. What more did you need? And so now whenever I touch one of those cards or I'm with it, I'll put a tagline on it and index it properly. But this is a slow process.
So
Cool. Yeah.
I wanted to add that whenever I do add on to an actual card, I always date the new edition. And most of my cards have dates to begin with for the original. I try to also do it in blue usually if I have a color pen handy. And actually, I do now have a multicolor pen that I keep in my box. It's got all 4, so I can easily do it.
Nice.
But this whole topic is something that sort of organically came up actually just last night. I met a friend who was passing through town, and we got started talking about Zettelkasten, as we do, and she was very interested. and overwhelmed. But my husband was there too, and he has his own Zettelkasten. And in the process of talking about, like how an index works, he finally decided he's ready for an index because he's resisted for, like 6 months or a year, however long he's been doing. He's like, I'm not doing an index. It feels too much. So we actually looked through his box last night, and we were looking through his cards, and I was trying to help him come up with taglines and be able to index things. And what I discovered was that he has everything set up by project. He's got, books that he wants to write or things that he wants to write about, and his categories are projects. So he was really
Okay.
resisting, like adding reflection, because he's like, well, this is just information that I want to put in the book. I'm like, but you should reflect on it. And he's like, but that's not where it goes in the book. So we kind of went around and around on that for a while. But, I realized he didn't have a general section like I do. My general section makes up the bulk of my Zettelkasten, and my project section is underdeveloped. I'm working on it. All he has is the project sections. So in the end, we came to the point where it's like, well, okay, maybe you don't need an index yet because of the way you have it set up. But if you start to build a general section that you want to be able to connect and have the ideas build on each other, then you're going to need it. And he went through and looked at my index and my cards, like went through my box card by card to sort of see what I was doing, which was actually a really good exercise as well to be part of, because I got a better understanding of what I've been trying to do. So yeah, this is a very relevant topic for me right now, because I realize that his box is more like your box, Victoria, from what I've seen of it, being heavily project based. So yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Cool.
and in that regard, I don't have a project box for my book. And the reason is that a given card is going to show up in different places in the book. So I can't say this card goes here because the whole first unit of my book, about the first third of the book, is all about the philosophy of the mind, the mental activities that one goes through while producing a Zettelkasten. Because I found it's too difficult to try to explain indexing along with why you want an index, bib cards along with why you want a bib card, links along with what the link is doing for you. So I've devoted a whole third of my book to just what do you want to do? And cards magically happen and cards magically number themselves, and you don't have to worry at all about how this happens. This is what we're doing mentally. And then I make the assertion that your Zettelkasten is just the souvenir of your mental processes. And it is so useful to your future self that you want to handle these cards very carefully. But because they will turn out to be very useful. But by themselves, the Zettelkasten is just the result. It's just what happens. The egg is in the process of making the chicken or the omelet. It doesn't exist if you kept the egg forever, unless it's some kind of Fabergé egg or a 100-year-old Chinese egg. It has no existence separate from what it's going to become. Only we keep
Very
it up. We filed all the shelves in our drawers.
Very cool.
And
that's what it's like to be in Kathleen's head.
Yeah.
Yes. And through a process of alchemy, we pull these shells out and create new eggs out of them.
There you go.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but you're cheating. It's two Zettelkastens, one household. I'm fascinated. I want everyone in my house to have one now, so I can go look at what they're doing. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. This is good. This is very, very helpful, enlightening. Okay, anybody want to add anything else before we go on to the next one? All right. Question 2. Plot bunnies are all of the scattered ideas that pop up when a writer is trying to concentrate on writing a particular story. You know, you think multiplying like bunnies, like you're writing along and you're going, and then all of a sudden you get an idea, and now you're thinking about that, and then that is that, and then that leads to that. And so you have all this stuff running around in your head when you're supposed to be writing your story or your book. Do you have Notebox Bunnies? Things that pop up as interesting or exciting to pursue while you're in the process of reading, installing, indexing something else. What do you do with them? Do those random ideas get a note card of their own, or do you have a wish list of next items that you want to install or research, and what does that look like? So do you have random things pop up while you're working with your notebox, and what do you do with them?
Only always.
That's what I suspected.
It's almost like I'm kind of scared to sit down and start indexing because
Right?
I'm not ready for the flood.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. Story ideas come out, project ideas come out, connections between this and that come out. I now try to make sure that I always at least capture it on a card. And I'm learning that the more detail I can capture, the better, because there's a there's a card that in my dump box. I know I only wrote this maybe 2 weeks ago. There's just 2 words on the card. Exhaust valve.
That's awesome. And what are we going to do with this?
I'm remembering it with some depth.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing now. I'm recreating because, oh boy, would a personal reflection have really been handy.
I love it.
And
I'm
maybe
so glad to hear that.
something.
That makes me feel so much better. Because I have some random stuff that I'm just like, what is this?
It still has a whiff of I thought this was so smart to it, but I don't know.
Right? Yeah, that's so true. So true.
Love that way of you putting it, a whiff of.
Yeah, yeah. That's awesome.
Well,
Anyone else?
yes, like Julianne said, always. There's always ideas. How well I capture them is an open question. I'm not at all systematic about it, but it kind of depends on context. Like if I'm writing along on something and I get some idea that's not what I want to write about just then or completely out of left field, usually what I do, this is writing by hand in my legal pad, I just put it in brackets on a new line, square brackets, and just, quickly write down whatever it was I thought about and then move on. So that way, when I go back through and I have a bib card for each legal pad. And so as I'm looking through, okay, this page I did this. Oh, there's some brackets. I need to make a note, maybe put it on a card or something. Put it somewhere where I can find it again.
Cool.
When I'm out walking, I tend to get ideas, and it's really hard to write things down when you're out walking. But I recently got a new phone that actually it really does voice to text really nicely. It's an iPhone. I've always had Androids before that, and I can get to the Notes app and do a voice note that it transcribes pretty well, very quickly and easily. So I've been using that. They still are living on my phone. I haven't transferred them to cards yet, but at least they're captured. And I know I can look there to find things. And I've got a section of my box that has just like random phrases that came into my mind at some point. And I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever use this, but it's interesting, so I'll toss it in here. And I have a whole random phrases section,
Nice.
which was interesting because, like, as My husband was flipping through my box. He comes across a card that all it says is turkey licking fool. He's like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know. It popped into my head, and so I wrote it down.
It's the exhaust valve.
Yes.
Right.
Exhaust valve.
Yeah, but unlike Julianne, there was no context. This is just words that popped into my head, and there was no bigger thought behind it to capture. It was just words.
It totally sounds like a Shakespearean insult.
Right, yeah. I'm like, I'll use it somewhere, maybe.
Excellent.
Yes, and there was another later on in one of my project boxes, which has almost nothing in it yet, but it does have one single card, and the card simply says, "The basket is full of bones." And he's like, well, that's ominous. I'm like, well, okay, yes, it is.
That's awesome. And now
actually,
we've been in Mel's head.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's a weird place. That actually is going to go into a story. It was a bit of a scene that popped into my head, so there is a connection for that one. I just haven't added any of the other cards.
Cool.
So yes, ideas all over the place everywhere. Maybe 1% of them make it onto something that I can save, and I'm trying to increase the number.
Nice. Cool. Anyone else?
Kathleen looks like she's got a thought in her head, but she's being polite.
Mine kind of grew up. I have now graduated to 2 dump boxes.
Oh man, it's a slippery slope.
With an inch, half an inch or less, which was my New Year's resolution. It's gone crazy.
Thanks.
So I always have the stuff I'm working on right exactly now. That's right in the front, and usually a podcast. And then I have my stuff that needs to be put away, and the stuff that's ready to be filed is all ready to go. I've got a clump that's ready. This got its tagline and reflection. Everything is just ready to be placed. I was just looking through some good stuff in there. I got to grab that. And then, like you guys say, there's all kinds of stuff where it's just a little phrase or a word or two or something, and it's undeveloped. But I didn't want to lose it, so I dropped it in there. Well, it so happened that there were such a number of these things that were things where I was nagged with something I needed to do, or something I wanted to do, or a project that I wanted to start, that I had ended up actually gave them a whole divider to their own self, but then something came along that sparked the fire, and actually it was a collection of things all sparking at the same time. One of which was Haley's purpose course, and the other was Mel's challenge to come up with 101 ideas in 1,000 days, or maybe 1,001 days. I don't remember exactly how those go, but roughly 10 days per idea. And it got me going into collecting all of those, and it turned into a whole project that I'm very excited about. That is it's becoming what I call my vision box. And it's this whole section here is actually developing into a new area that will become in my Zettelkasten. And I started with a letter V for vision. And then because my stuff is normally number, letter, this guy has a null first number. So it's like V1B-1. So it's mine, no number, letter dash. So it's still, so I've got 3 then 4. But it's really shaping up into my vision for everything that I hope to be, in the sense of regular ongoing processes that's just part of living, and everything that I hope to do. At age 77, I'm looking at, I'm thinking of it as the last quadrant of my life, even though that means I'm going to have to make it to 108, which might be a little over optimistic. But nevertheless, I'm still regarding it that, because that's a nice chunk. And so everything that I want to have a place in there is in here. And along with that, I have added all the books that I really, really want to read that have a place in my reading. And what I'm doing with those is I'm actually using your method, Julianne, that we just learned just a very short while ago, that with adding the tagline to the bib card that summarizes that what the book is about plus my purpose for reading it, captured in a single tagline and indexed properly in Zeek. So I'm doing that for every book that's landing into this section.
That's
So
awesome.
it's turning into a huge project, but you know, like anything else, it explodes and then it settles down. And I'm now really, really nicely, I'm probably past the 3/4 mark in completing that project. And I will have a complete view of everything I'm dreaming of at this stage. Of course, it could always grow, but at this stage where I am right now, everything I'm dreaming of doing or accomplishing or being. And so, you know, when I think of all of you and everything that I've gained from you, there's no way that would even be in existence without the Zettelcast, without being a part, you know. So it, the Zettelkasten just brings so much, and it brings people, and it brings ideas, and it's just totally blessed my life.
All that out of a Notebox Bunny. Who knew?
So, yeah, this is the biggest
But
Notebox Bunny of them all. Yep.
yeah. Oh, yeah, no question. But, you know, it's just going to keep expanding, and pretty soon you're going to have to be 142, and we're just going to keep going. No, that's awesome. And that's kind of that kind of encapsulates why I asked the question is I see that we all go through this process where, you know, you're reading something or you're working on something and, you know, you've just got these things that just kind of zing around all the time. And, you know, number one, what do you do with them? And it seems like we all find a way to capture them in some fashion. And then number two, what do they become? And that's a perfect example of what those things become. For me, I mean, I think everybody knows mine just go on my little mobile deck. I've got one of these just about everywhere I go. I even bought a little, like, you know, I call it a go bag. It's like just, you know, just my wallet, my phone, you know, very light, very small, just for like when I run to the grocery store or something. But the deciding factor for the purchase of said bag was, will a mobile deck fit in it? Forget the phone, forget the wallet. Will my note cards fit in it? Yes, we're good. But I try now, of late, I haven't been doing this every week, just, you know, because I was sick for 3 days, and then, you know, prior to that, trying to get the book done, my time is just really stacked full right now. But usually one of my Sunday kind of relaxing, fun leisure activities, I think of it as fun, is I go through everything that's on that deck for that week, and it gets put somewhere. Either it goes into one of my collections, you know, if it's a piece of conversation, an experience, partial grocery list, I mean, whatever. You know, it gets sorted into the bucket where it needs to go and live, at least semi-permanently. And then I also have, I don't call it random, but I don't really have a name for it. It's just kind of a section where just stuff gets stuck, whatever it looks like, and it just sort of hangs out there until I decide to do something with it. But it's a lot of that random stuff. Or things, for me, I find a lot of my Notebox Bunny things come from things that I discover, which is something I want to know more about. There are workflows where it's ideas like for the novel, like actual creative things, but a lot of it is, like, I'm looking at one right here, that manuscript that I found out that has like the early rockets in it. It's from like the 1400s, I think. I mean, it's just so cool, and it's something that I want to learn more about. So I would say that's probably the majority of mine, are things that I run across that I think, ooh, I want to know more about that. So it gets jotted down, and then I have to figure out, when am I going to have time to look into it, and what am I going to do with it? More and more of late, those things that I find get processed in terms of utility. If I'm interested in the thing because it has relevance to something I'm working on, it gets way higher priority and more description in the card or where I've captured it. If it's something random, that like a legitimate plot bunny that's just like, ooh, exhaust pipe, those get kind of lower down on the hierarchy of things that get my attention, because like Kathleen
Brilliant
said,
at the time, whatever it was.
right? Well, yeah, you just have to prioritize. Like we all only have 24 hours in a day, and I have to be very stingy with my attention, because I mean, I think we are all guilty at some point of just frittering hours following the threads of discovery, and ooh, and that, oh, and now I'm gonna look at that, and then you look and 3 hours have passed and you're like, what did I really accomplish other than indulging the monkey mind, which may or may not get me anywhere? So I find I have to be much more strict with myself, especially now that I have particular projects and deadlines that I want to meet. I can't let the monkey mind chase the plot bunnies for too long.
Well, the monkey mind lives in the Zettelkasten too.
I know. It's true. I just have to keep it focused on colored pens and tabs and washi tape, so it keeps it from chasing Notebox Bunnies. Anyone else?
Only one left.
I just didn't know if you wanted to chime in. The floor is yours.
I understand, and I appreciate you. I do. But basically, I just echo. I'm pretty much. I'm more organized. I have to say, I'm more organized every week than I was the week before. So
cool.
As long as that's happening, then I'm good. Or I don't feel as bad as I could, So I say, okay, let me just keep going, one foot in front of the other. And I mean, the ideas that pop wherever I am, I now capture them. They don't. The idea or the phrase or the whatever it is gets a date and a spot on a card. But that's about what it gets. The idea of coming back every week, though, like you're saying on as a Sunday activity, that's very good, because otherwise, there'll be a big stack of stuff that will be a turnoff to you. It'll make you feel bad. So
yeah,
to put it into a regular routine, to review it and put it wherever it should go, at least, like you said, semi-temporarily, semi-permanently, at least that. So it's not just in the junk drawer, kind of, it's not there, it's out, and it has a place to be. So yeah, I will forever keep coming to all of these meetings that I regularly come to, because I always walk away with something good, and hopefully I'll be able to contribute some good stuff too, so good.
You contribute plenty. Don't short yourself.
Absolutely.
I'm just I'm so upset with my mute, but I'm trying not to be upset with her, because she has her own agenda, and I'm saying, okay,
That's right. Just give her a little space. She's just percolating.
Yep.
Well, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because my takeaway is I need to be much better about dating my cards. I'm not very good about that. And I love Mel's idea of being able to kind of see, there was a 6-month delta here, or there was 2 years between this and this. I very much like that, and I'm just not very good at doing it. I don't know why, because I'm diligent about that in about every area of my life, but for some reason not this one. And I'm also glad to hear that I'm not the only one whose notebox makes me feel bad. I'm serious. I can sit here and look over there and be like, there's so many things unfiled and it's a big hot mess. It just makes me feel awful. And then I'm like, you dork, it doesn't matter. And then the other side of me is like, it does matter. It's sad. So yeah.
Some dividers label the sections, and then you'll feel like you did something with it.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The weekly, I call it, like the weekly laundering of items was very much grew out of that. It made me feel bad that I had this system and all of these new, ideas or contributions or whatever, and that I wasn't honoring that system by processing them. It's like that home organizer, Marie Kondo, she has you go through and you take all of the books, if you're sorting books, every single book in your entire house and pile it in one room. And you have to hold each item and think about, does this bring something to my life or do I need to let it go? And so, it's this process, and that really resonated with me. So pretty early on, I committed to sit with that week's cards, or, at least every 2 weeks. I never go longer than that. And just honor those ideas and give them a home in the box, or, or put them in the random section, however that works out. But yeah, I've been feeling bad all week because my box is a hot mess, and I just need to put on some good music, set a timer for 30 minutes and clean that thing up, because it is so scary.
You know what you're describing?
What?
An exhaust valve.
That's the new term. That's the term for it. So true.
I love what you were saying about piling all the books you own in one room, because I have this dream now, and now I've got to make a card for it since I uttered it, to have a Julianne complete bib card for every book in my library. Wouldn't that be a dream? Because then if I hold that book and I say, okay, if I cannot get myself to make a proper bib card for this book, why isn't it going into the pile to be given to charity? Why am I keeping a space in my library for that book? And I can't even get myself to find a picture online and write out a bib card.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Richard brought that up in one of our other groups. He said, let me make a suggestion to the newer people. As soon as you pick up a book to do something with it, to consider it, do I want to buy it, whatever, make a bib card for it right then. Because if it's not worth doing that, then you probably don't need to have it. He said exactly that same thing. And that really struck me, because I thought, wow, how many books do I have that I wouldn't even consider making a bib card for? Well, maybe it's because they don't have utility anymore and they need to find another home. It's a good question. I think it's a good metric to use, because I have a whole second library downstairs that I'll be honest, I'm avoiding it because I don't want to think about it. There's too much. Like, do I really need, okay, I was going to say, do I really need my college textbooks? Well, writing the book I'm writing, now they're all over there on that shelf because I found out I did need them. So then the part of me that's hanging on to all this crap is going, don't let it go. You can't win. Okay, do we want to add, I think we're about 45 minutes. Do we want to answer a third question, or do we want to wrap?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kathleen's going, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking for the people
All
who
right.
are very, very happy to answer that third question because
Okay.
my
Bonus
self is
question.
making me feel bad.
I know. That little tart just sits over there giving you the stink eye.
Yeah.
Okay. So share a card that represents your most excellent manifestation of your Zettelkasten goals or your process, and tell us why it's the standard of perfection. Is it the way you've captured the idea? Or is it the discoveries that it led to, or something else entirely? Just take a card or cards and explain what makes it so valuable when you get it just right.
Okay, I'm gonna go first because mine's kind of a rerun because I've already brought it up in this very same Zettelcast because it was very much on my mind. So this is just an instance of it, but it's something that is coming up for me daily now, especially since I'm building my goals and I'm building in a certain amount of my reading list is being built into cards. And this is what I was talking about with Julianne. I'm just going to hold it up. So with Julianne was the first contribution I got some time ago was this beautiful idea of adding a picture of the book to the card. That just really, really brings the card to life. And then I have my normal bib card material along with it and the purpose, which was I don't remember whether it was something I came up with or somebody suggested it to me. I apologize if someone suggested it to me, and which is very important for me because I can have the same book and have a second bib card if I'm picking it up for a different purpose. And if I have a very targeted purpose, especially, I'll want to make that purpose known. And then this wonderful new addition that came from Julianne, the idea of having a tagline that captures not only the what I expect to find in the book, but also my purpose for reading this book. It has added so much dimensionality to my index itself where I find these books and it gives and that is doing exactly, Julianne, what you said it did for you. When I bump into one of these books, it increases my motivation to read that particular book. So I'm starting to get that, well, okay, I'm in the middle of a book. What am I going to want to read next? And the energy for a certain book just builds and builds because of its relevance via the index. Incredibly valuable. I am also, however, continuing to keep my title index because sometimes you just plain want to look up the book by its title. So I'm still keeping that. But to me, that what that embodies and why it's so magnificent is it embodies the whole nature of a Zettelkasten, which lets you bring together ideas from so many different directions. I'm capturing quotes from all of you people because you say the most wonderful things, and also from quotes from other sources, because ideas are out there. And the whole idea of the Zettelkasten and being able to pull together and make use of ideas that come from, have a way for them to come together where they're needed is just beyond belief. I think that, and I should know the name of the guy who made the quote that perspective is worth some large number of 80 IQ points. I think I've heard it as large as 80. But I would say that a Zettelkasten is really literally like having another brain. So probably another 100 IQ points. Just
Yeah.
beyond belief. And so that's why it couldn't be a card. It could only be an example of a card. It's the whole thing that happens with a Zettelkasten.
I love that. I do have goals. Like the reason why I want to read something is on its bib card. But I like that of taking it to that next level so that you bring that energy when you look at it. I like that. That's good. That's good.
Well, my example comes out of the whole process last night of looking through my box card by card because um, this is an example of really doing the process of a card chooses its parent. And things having good taglines and being indexed and the card choosing their parent. I have other examples, but this one is really good because um, I've this particular card has two children right now, and the two children don't really have anything to do with each other, but they both chose the parent. And
Wow.
when my husband was looking through it, just flipping through it, not really paying attention to the numbers, he's like, "Why did you put this card next to this other card? What do they have to do with each other?" I'm like, "Well, they don't. They just both chose the other one. They're they're siblings that are really different, but they have the same parent." Um, so the parent card was the tagline is "Study man to understand God, microcosm and macrocosm." And it was a big quote about how Robert, I think, Flood in the Renaissance, I think he was, made a theater that you could, that was a memory palace at any rate. Um, but, he was trying to create something small on the scale of human to understand the universe. And that's really, it's kind of key to what I've been doing with all my other stuff. But one of the things that chose that as its parent was the card from Julianne about Lucasa, a handheld memory palace for encyclopedic storage, because the Lucasa itself is a microcosm of your larger structure in your mind. So that one, quite obviously to me. But the other one, the other child, was a sort of a meditation on the Greek god Hermes and his nature, because he's thought of as changeable, mercurial. Can't stick with one thing. But I was meditating on it, and my understanding now is that he's not, wishy-washy. He's responsive. He dances nimbly from one task to the other. He's called changeable and inconstant, but that's a mischaracterization. He joyfully meets each situation with the appropriate response. I don't quite remember why this card chose the microcosm to be a microcosm, macrocosm as its parent, but it really wanted to. So that's
Cool.
so yeah, those two don't go together, but they both go to their parent. And it was sort of it was really a perfect example of using Kathleen's system of, the new card chooses its parent and you don't get to argue.
That's awesome. Yeah, and the other Zettelkasten holder in the house doesn't get to say this doesn't make sense because you're the decider.
Right.
It's like, don't question me.
I love it. For me, it's a chance to turn off my dictatorial thinking brain that just wants to take over and dominate every second of my existence.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
this can be a problem as we're working on, for me, as we're working on Roanoke, because a lot of the ideas that I have are kind of for the world of Roanoke, but they're based on all the other things that I'm interested in.
Right.
And so I worry that these things that I conceive of as a story element in Roanoke, that they're going that well, sorry, it's like I don't even think of the number because this is a story idea and it just goes in the story ideas area of it. So I don't run it through the indexing process because I presuppose, well, it's for Roanoke. I'm going to stick it in there. And yes, it is for Roanoke, but need to find what else is in Nadia that might also contribute to this. And I haven't begun that, but I have had that feeling of feeling bad as I'm like, oh, well, how do you know that this is actually 2.1C?
Right. Right. That's awesome.
One of these days, I'm going to have some of you people explain to me why, if you own your own head, you're making yourself feel bad. I don't get it.
It
Ask
makes
the
no
Buddha.
Right?
Because no one else does it as well.
That's right.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
I didn't pull my card out ahead of time. I apologize. And now I might not even be able to find it, but
Take your
I can
time.
tell you the one it is. I think it's over there because it's in the book box. For me, since so much of my system up to this point was set up for fiction, my most valuable aspect was being able to make connections within that fiction project so that I could get the writing done. So that was always my first principle. So when everything really came together for me was when I was researching a man. He was a Chicago textile magnate back in coming into World War I. And I had these story pieces, but I didn't know how to connect them all together. And I really struggled with writing a villain. That was very hard for me to wrap my head around because I knew all of the things I did not want to do. The roads I didn't want to go down, the kind of villain I wanted to write. I had a whole list of no's, but that left me with no yes. There was no opportunity there. So in my mind, probably my most perfect representation of a card that came from the process that did its job beautifully was when I was reading a book about this man, and I have 3 cards that describe where he was, which is outside of Chicago, and he created Riverbank, which is this whole network of laboratories, and they were researching everything from code breaking to military arsenals to beekeeping. He built a life-size Japanese garden. I mean, you name it. He was a Zettelkasten. And as I started understanding these pieces of his life and what he had done, I had a moment when the things that he was interested in, because I had been keeping just line items on a card, suddenly clicked perfectly into place with the kind of problem that my main character needed to encounter. It's like it all just came together perfectly. And it was because of the way that I was reading the book about him and taking those notes, and I had a sense that I could pivot him into something important, but I didn't know how yet. So for me, that would be it. It would be when I know I have a character, a scene, or even now in the nonfiction book, the how-to for writers, I have a need and I know what it is. I have no idea how I'm going to get myself from A to B to meet it, but my Zettelkasten is doing its job most perfectly when I'm capturing just the raw information on the card and maybe my thoughts about it, and then all of a sudden something about that piece fits into something else and solves the problem and meets the need. So for me, I think that's my most rewarding and my deepest experience with the Zettelkasten as a tool and as a process, because, and I've said this about other pieces of the novel, there are problems that I could not solve on my own. And that included the structure, because I couldn't hold it all in my head anymore. I could hold the story in my head when I was 25 and I started it, but now I can't hold that whole world in my head anymore. And of course, thanks to the machinations of one Kathleen Spracklin, that one book turned into a trilogy, and then I really couldn't hold it in my head. So for me, that is it at its most perfect, is when I'm trusting the process, I'm collecting those pieces, and then I have that moment when something clicks and solves the problem, and then I'm able to just roll on down the road and get the writing done. It's awesome. It makes you feel like you have a superpower.
I'm looking at this, it's not a card. It's a, and you can't see it because I have a blur.
Yeah, a little bit.
Comes in and out. Oh, there you go. Woo.
You
Yeah.
saw it? You saw it?
Yeah, I came in briefly for a moment. Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's a Venn diagram. And it's got 3 parts. Kathleen's 28 character traits is there. And then Michael Dean's 27 elements for the architecture of an essay.
Ooh.
Okay. And Joan Didion's precision / style.
Oh.
And then my star in the middle, that where all of these come together, right? And then I've got a dream catching up here on the corner.
Uh-huh.
Dream catching with active imagination. Thank you, Mel. Okay, so that's there. And then LC,
Uh-huh.
her childhood, LC's childhood.
Yeah.
And then a little corner for exercise, physical movement. Because if without that, there's the whole thing atrophies. So not a card, but it's I feel like it's mighty. Mighty. It's mighty in terms of strength, and it's mighty in terms of a kind of a beauty,
Yeah.
So
Cool.
Would you scan that and post it in LilyPub for us?
okay.
I would love to see that. And I'm just crazy about your concept of, you just said it nonchalantly, a Venn diagram with a star in the middle. Now, most of the time when people do Venn diagrams, they throw away everything except the magical intersection of however many circles they've drawn. And there's just that little teeny tiny piece in the middle. Just the casual way in which you talked about the star in the middle just popped in my brain. But that's what you do that so often that I would love to be in your mind.
There's craziness there.
But it's so fresh. It's so fresh and insightful and not bogged down by any, it's got to be this way. It's got to be this way. It's all the rules. I live by all these rules, and I got to float on top of all these rules. And it's just, it invites your openness to fresh ideas invites me to have fresh ideas. It encourages me to let my other half of my brain loose a little bit.
Little bit.
Let the monkey out.
All right. I
Cool.
will. I'll put it in the. But I would rather put it in a place where it's only accessible to the 5 of us.
Yeah.
How do I do that?
I just scan it and post a picture of it in the Zettelcast in our private group on LilyPub.
Okay. Aye.
But speaking of which, if I can find the card, I had it a moment ago. Oh, that's my LilyPub card. I did. I lost my LilyPub card. I just had it for when I'll do a new one real quick. Sorry about that.
L-I-L-L-I. P.
There it is. Nice.
All right, here's an lilypub.org
There
card.
it is.
where my regular one went. So please come on over to lilypub.org where we continue the conversation. You can find all of these recordings and a whole bunch of snippets and some great discussions, an amazing collection of spaces that you can join for writing, for reading, for Zettelkasten, for character traits. We've just got groups of every imaginable type out there, and we are growing in our area as well. So come on over and see what all we have to offer you on LilyPub. You will not be sorry. And all you have to do is skip a premium coffee or two once a month to be able to afford LilyPub. We're that inexpensive.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks.